there. Welcome to another great video game ideas not used podcast, GVGINU for short. As always, I'm Andre, and it's a pleasure to share my thoughts with you. This is something I just wanted to talk about real quick because it's something I'm noticing, I'm looking at, and I keep seeing shit that makes me kind of question people sometimes when I'm reading YouTube comments and the like. There are people basically saying the Wii U is the death of Nintendo. Okay. If you believe that wholeheartedly, why are a good majority of these people supporting the 3DS? You can't say Nintendo's dead in the water if you're still supporting them. Like, what, did they think that the 3DS money doesn't go to Nintendo? I don't know. And we hear a lot that because the Wii U is weaker than the Xbox One and the PS4, that is a reason that it won't have a lot of games. That will come into play on some games. It won't come into play on all of them. It will come into play on some multi-platform games. But to that same token, if you wanted to go there, the PS Vita is quite a bit more powerful than the 3DS is. And you can look this up. I have. The Vita is the more powerful handheld in comparison to the 3DS. So why is it that the Vita is not outselling the 3DS? If we use this logic, if you're going to use that logic one place, it has to fit everywhere else. There has to be a constant correlation of the two. Otherwise, that is not the answer. The answer for this, the 3DS has more software. It has more software, more software that people find enjoyable on a general scale. Does that make the Vita a bad handheld? No, it does not. Certainly it doesn't. But that makes the 3DS the more popular one, the one that sells better, the one that more people are interested in. Does that make sense? Because if we went by the logic of power, then the GameCube, no matter what you want to say, should have outsold the PS2. The N64, no matter what you want to say, should have outsold the PS1. Actually, at that point, the Sega Saturn actually should have outsold both of them because technically, even though it wasn't a huge gap, it was actually the most powerful of the three at that time. Don't believe me? You can go back and research it. It was actually the most powerful console at that time among the three. It wasn't a big gap, but it was actually the most powerful. The only time that I can think of in history that this actually correlates, and it literally correlates, is the 16-bit era where the Super Nintendo led pretty much everything. And it was more powerful than the Sega Genesis. I mean, it was, like I said, it wasn't with the Sega Sega Saturn and everything else. It wasn't a huge gap, but it was enough that people could take notice. But that wasn't because of the fact that the Super Nintendo was more powerful. It was because it had generally the better received software. People enjoyed the software on that more. That is how it was. That's how I see it. Like, there are more people that enjoy that software. There are more people that are going to buy that. They're buying the hardware to play the software on it. That was why the Super Nintendo, at least in my eyes, did better. I mean, I personally prefer the Genesis more. But that didn't make me say, oh, fuck Nintendo, I'm never going to touch it. No, I played that fucker all the time. Just like I played the Genesis all the time. Because back then, believe it or not, if you're young and you came about after the 64 era, Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis, when one got one game, the other got a counterpart to that game. So it kind of was like you had to have both in order to see everything that happened within a series of games. Believe it or not, that's how it was. But Nintendo still did better overall. That's just how that went. So I'm saying, like, yes, people can say Nintendo limited both the GameCube and the 64. 64 by going with the cartridge format. But here's one thing. Capcom found a way to stuff Resident Evil 2 onto one cartridge. One cartridge. When it was a 2-disc PS1 game. So possibly more things could have been done with it if more companies were at the time willing to do it. Yes, it was far cheaper and easier to do disc-based systems, and I don't blame the companies for going that route. But with the GameCube, they could have easily, some of the games that ended up on the Xbox and the PS1 that didn't make it to the GameCube could have easily been put on it. They just would have had to divide those games up into disc. I'm very sure that a Grand Theft Auto could have fucking run on a GameCube if it was like, broke it up into disc and each disc was a different city. Or a different portion of the city, or whatever the fuck. But that's something that could have been done, but it would have been a waste of time in my eyes for developers to do something like that if they didn't have to. And then there's plenty of games that came out on all three, where the GameCube had the best version, or the Xbox had the best version, or even the PS2 had the best version. It was just how it went. But it's not an issue of power, because we know which consoles had the most power at certain points in time. It wasn't a power issue. It was an issue of having the best software and having a way to get that software to your fan base with very little trouble. And the fact that we also know that Nintendo burned a lot of bridges back in the day, yes, they caused a lot of problems themselves. I will not defend them on that. And they could also go back and say, hey, we know we fucked up our relationship with you. We want to mend that. Let's work on mending that, and we can walk forward together and make some fucking kick-ass games for people to enjoy. At least that's how I see it. But don't tell me it's a power issue. It's not a power issue. Fucking honestly, if it was power, then the Wii would have never sold. It would have never sold. Even with the fucking motion controls, it would have never sold. At all. Like, there has to be more to it than just the power of the console. Well, you have to think about that. There always is more to it than just the power of the console. Does it factor in? Yes, I will agree it does factor in, but it is not the sole reason. There's too many variables surrounding video games in order for us to sit there and point at one specific variable as the reason why something doesn't work out. The Wii U sold poorly after holiday 2012 because 1, it wasn't advertised, 2, it didn't have the software to support the system, and 3, people didn't want to buy fucking gimped ass ports of games. Would you want to buy a game on a PS4 or an Xbox One that, even though it looked prettier than the Wii U version of the game, it had far less features and playability? Who in their right fucking mind would want to go buy that game? You would walk through the store, look at that fucking game, and be like, well, this one's worse than that one, and that's the weaker console. Why the fuck should I get this? That's exactly what people did with the Wii U. Think about that. Use your brain. Like, apply it where it makes sense. Yes, and like I said, Nintendo fucked up with third parties back in the day. And Iwata needs to mend those relationships, and honestly, he hasn't attempted to, as far as I'm concerned. He brought a lot of attention back to Nintendo when he started, but he didn't really do much as far as mending past relationships that were broken. That's why there's no Grand Theft Auto 5 on the Wii U. Which, you know what? I would love to see how that game would actually play on the Wii U using the gamepad controller. There's a lot of games I would love to see how they could implement different features using that gamepad that can't be done with the other consoles because it isn't a native resource to them. I mean, yes, you can use a touchscreen phone or tablet in certain situations and get things done to interact in a game. I'm not saying that isn't possible, and sometimes that is a fucking awesome thing that you can do. But if it is not native, there can be problems with it. If it's not something that is built into the console itself, there can be problems with it. Am I saying it's perfect the way the Wii U has it? It's probably close as it can get to perfect. Doesn't mean there's probably a lot of things that can be done to make it better. But if Nintendo came out with a console that was even double the power of the Wii U, how many people would have actually went out and bought it? Because you got to think about the fact that it came out at $350. If they increase the power to the console to be double that, I'm seeing it coming out at about $600. How many people would have actually bought it? Everyone, like, that's too fucking expensive. Why the fuck would I spend $600 on your console? Features or not, people would have said that is too expensive. I know I would have. And Nintendo would have definitely been like, okay, we're going to wait till that price drops to like under $300 before I even come close to that bitch. Personally, me. See, that's how I am. I don't know how other people are, but I am. Though I would have loved Nintendo to come out with a console that was stronger. I would have loved them to. But they didn't. So we have to accept the Wii U for what it is. Fuck, if they would have made the Wii what the Wii U is, it still wouldn't have sold. Because it would have, at that time, been the most expensive console. Because I know at that time it would have cost them more to put that. It would have been a higher price to put that out. It wouldn't have sold well. Well, it might have after a while, but it wouldn't have sold well initially. I know that much for sure. So I'm running on this. Let's stop saying one facet of something is the reason that something doesn't work out when there are plenty of other things that can be done. That's my point. Now, once we get further along in this console generation and we see shit being done on the PS4 and Xbox One that can't be done on the Wii U, there are alternatives. There are definitely alternatives. But we're not at that point just yet. I mean, the Xbox One and the PS4 are going to launch very soon. But, in my honest opinion, there hasn't been anything put on either of those consoles just yet that can't be done on 7th gen. That is the truth of it to me. I mean, other people are going to disagree. I respect that. You can disagree with me. But that's just how I'm looking at it. So, take it as you will. Just, look, respect to agree to disagree, but don't go bashing people or a company for shit that you don't fully have a handle on. Hell, I know I don't have a full handle on it, and I'm not going to sit there and say that is one problem. There are plenty of problems with the Wii U. A lot of them are very fixable, very easily. It just takes some time to get it done. But that's my take on it. So if that's my take on it. You can agree, disagree. Please be respectable about it. That's all I ask. And thank you for listening. Until the next time, enjoy your games. Because I know I sure will.